Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Vaibhav Jyotsna Srivastav, and with me is Abhineet Shukla, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken tells Taliban to reform their policies if they desire international recognition. Vietnam criticizes China's border control under zero COVID policy as overkill disrupting supply chain, bilateral trade. Fire ravages South Africa's parliament complex, one detained. Indian refutes media reports claiming government missed vaccination targets. Nationwide COVID-19 vaccination for teenagers between 15 and 18 years being launched. Jammu and Kashmir Week gets underway at Expo 2020 Dubai on Monday to pitch in for global investments at India Pavilion. All India Radio to double broadcast time in 6 neighborhood languages of Dari, Pashto, Baluchi, Mandarin Chinese, Nepali and Tibetan from Monday. And in cricket, India to take on South Africa in the second test at the Wanderers Stadium in Johannesburg. As India marches towards administering 150 crore vaccine doses against COVID-19, news about the new corona variant is a cause for concern. In this situation, we appeal to our listeners to get fully vaccinated at the earliest and help others get vaccinated. Please continue to follow these 3 simple steps to stay safe. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact the national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now, the news in detail. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that Taliban need to reform their policies if they desire international recognition. Addressing a media briefing in Washington, he asked Afghanistan's new rulers to uphold human rights, allow freedom of movement, halt reprisals and combat terrorism. He also promised to looking at the options to put more liquidity into Afghanistan's tattered economy. Blinken added that while studying ways of injecting more liquidity into the Afghan economy, the U.S. and its allies were looking to it that the funds did not directly benefit the Taliban. He said that U.S. has used multiple general licenses to ensure that other countries and institutions felt free to move forward with their assistance to Afghanistan. United States has appointed 2 women diplomats to senior posts representing Washington in Afghanistan. Reena Amiri has been appointed as a special envoy for Afghan women, girls and human rights. She has spent 2 decades advising governments, the United Nations and think tanks on issues related to Afghanistan. Under former U.S. President Barack Obama, she served as a senior advisor to the U.S. Special Representative for Afghanistan and Pakistan. Stephanie Foster from the U.S. State Department will be the new senior advisor for women and girls to U.S. operations to evacuate and resettle Afghans at risk. The move comes close on the heels of Taliban imposing fresh restrictions on women in Afghanistan.
Russia has linked the Taliban government's recognition to progress in the fulfillment of their promises. In an interview to TASS, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the talk of the Taliban's recognition was premature at the moment. He has asked the Taliban to keep their promises, including the creation of an inclusive government and combating terrorism and drugs. Lavrov added that Russia would gradually move towards excluding the Taliban from the UN Security Council's blacklist. He told that Russia has maintained working contacts with representatives of the Taliban who came to power in mid-August. Vietnam criticizes China's border controls under zero COVID policy as overkill, disrupting supply chain, bilateral trade. Vietnam has criticized China's zero COVID policies as excessive after tight border controls by Guangxi provincial authorities caused a backlog of thousands of trucks and disrupted trade. Vietnam's State Ministry urged China to take urgent measures to ease congestion at border crossings, including starting a pilot program to allow fully vaccinated workers to alleviate manpower shortages by loading and unloading the trucks held up at Chinese border crossings. According to state-owned Vietnam news agency, Vietnam's Trade Ministry, after a video call with officials from the southwestern Chinese region on Friday, said pandemic prevention measures that Guangxi is applying under the zero-COVID policy, such as stopping border gate operations or stopping the import of some types of fruit, are overkill. This disrupted the supply chain, negatively impacted the development of bilateral trade, and caused great losses to businesses and people on both sides, it said. The two sides agreed to stay in close communication to resolve the problem, as reported in Chinese media, quoting a Vietnam news agency report. Taiwan witnesses a rise in immigration from Hong Kong amid national security crackdown. The democratic island of Taiwan is expecting a new wave of arrivals from the former British colony of Hong Kong, where the ruling Chinese Communist Party is presiding over a citywide crackdown on civil society, public dissent and political opposition under a draconian national security law, according to Radio Free Asia. The latest statistics from the Taiwan Immigration Department indicate that number of Hong Kong residents emigrating to Taiwan hit a new high in 2021. The island's Mainland Affairs Commission spokesman Hugh Choi Chang told reporters on Friday.
In South Africa, a major fire ripped through South Africa's Parliament complex on Sunday, gutting offices and causing some ceilings in the building that houses the National Legislature to collapse. As firefighters struggled to tame the blaze, a dark plume of smoke and flames rose high into the air above the southern city of Cape Town. Around 70 firefighters were still battling the fire more than 7 hours after it started in the early morning, Cape Town's Fire and Rescue Service spokesman Jermaine Carles said. No injuries have been reported and Parliament itself had been closed for the holidays. Visiting the scene, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said a person was being held and is being questioned by the police in connection with the blaze. Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure Patricia de Lille told reporters that this is a very sad day for democracy, for Parliament is the home of our democracy. J.P. Smith, the Cape Town official in charge of safety and security, said at least one floor of the parliamentary office building was gutted and its entire roof had collapsed. Parliament Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa Nkakula also cautioned against speculation that it was a deliberate attack on South Africa's seat of democracy. President Ramaphosa and many of South Africa's top politicians were in Cape Town for the funeral service of retired Archbishop Desmond Tutu, which took place on Saturday at the city's St. George's Cathedral, about a block away from the Parliament precinct. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
India said that media reports claiming that the government has missed vaccination targets are misleading. Union Health Ministry said in the fight against global pandemic COVID-19, India's national COVID-19 vaccination program has been one of the most successful and the largest vaccination programs compared with the many developed Western nations. The ministry said media report is misleading and does not represent the complete picture. Since the start of the national COVID vaccination drive on the 16th of January 2021, India has administered over 90% of first dose and 65% of second dose to its eligible citizens. In the drive, India has achieved several milestones unprecedented in the world, including administering over 1 billion doses in less than 9 months and administering over 25 million doses in a single day. In case of first dose coverage to the eligible population, US has covered only 73.2% of the population, UK has covered 75.9% and France has covered 78.3% of its population. The ministry underlined that India has already covered 90% of the eligible population with first dose of vaccine against COVID-19. In India, COVID-19 vaccination of teenagers in the age group of 15 to 18 years will begin from Monday. The vaccine option for children will be only Covaxin. Union Health Ministry has said that all those whose birth year is 2007 or before will be eligible for vaccination. The registration for vaccination of COVID jabs in this age group on COVID portal has already started from the 1st of this month. The appointment for vaccination can be booked online or through walk-in. All citizens, irrespective of their income status, are entitled to free COVID-19 vaccination at government vaccination centers. Meanwhile, the Health and Family Welfare Ministry has said that over 1.45 billion doses of COVID vaccines have been administered in the country under the nationwide vaccination drive.
Health Minister of India Dr. Mansukh Mandavia on Sunday reviewed public health preparedness to COVID-19 and national COVID-19 vaccination progress with states and union territories. The meeting was held in view of the rising cases of the Omicron variant and recent decisions to roll out vaccination for the age group of 15 to 18 years and precautionary dose for identified vulnerable categories. The Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir will showcase the investment opportunities in the West Asia region at the India Pavilion. As part of the week, Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, Manoj Sinha, with other government officials, will hold various meetings and invite global investors to invest across key sectors such as tourism, handloom, handicraft and food processing, among others. The J&K delegation will participate in various bilateral meetings during the week. A speech on development after UT will be hosted on January the 6th, where the Lieutenant Governor will talk about the initiatives taken by the government of J&K in ensuring growth across different sectors. Given the prominence of J&K as a tourist destination, a joint session has been organized with the Ministry of Tourism on January the 12th. The Jammu and Kashmir Week will conclude on January the 13th.
In today's edition of Hotspot, we have a discussion on the upcoming developments across the globe in the realm of external affairs in 2022. The participants are Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Simran Sodhi, a journalist.
We are discussing the upcoming developments which we are likely to see across the globe in this coming year. We will also be taking a look at what has happened in the last year, and as we move forward, what are some of the issues globally that are likely to dominate our headlines and our analysis. Ambassador Sajjanhar, the first thing, of course, is the coronavirus. And this is something that the world has been dealing with for almost more than 2 years now. And we have seen how the global economy, including the economy of India, has suffered because of this. How do you see the world and especially India dealing with this?
The Omicron is the new variant which has been with us for about 5 or 6 weeks. I think when it erupted around the end of November, then most of the world was thinking that we had seen the worst of the coronavirus. We have had the vaccines for about 1 year or so, and vaccination was being done, of course, in varying degrees in different countries. So people were feeling reasonably confident that we were getting out of the grips of the coronavirus. But again, Omicron has come, and then the whole world has really been again forced down to its knees. Meaning, if we were just to see what is happening in the United States with 600,000 cases per day, and in the United Kingdom about 180,000 plus cases a day. So the healthcare sector in even the most developed and the most prosperous countries, it has really been brought down to its knees. They don't have enough testing kits, they don't have enough hospital beds, they don't have enough medicines. So I think this is a very unusual sort of situation which the countries and the world had not anticipated. But again, I think one could say that there is a bit of a silver lining on this cloud, because what it appears is that the Omicron variant is definitely not as lethal and as virulent as the Delta variant. It might be more contagious, it might be more infectious, but then those cases, most of them could recover on their own. But of course, more studies are required to be done. So I think this is a very big uncertainty as the world goes forward. And as you said very correctly, the economies of all the countries will be hit hard because, again, we are going to go into some sort of lockdown, some sort of bringing down in terms of traveling to offices or maintaining social distancing, etc. Over the last 2 years, as you mentioned, we know a little more about the virus. And we also have the vaccine with us. So I think to an extent we are a little better armed. But still the economies of all the countries are going to be hit very hard. And it will take quite some time for them to recover. As far as the travel sector is concerned, the aviation sector is concerned, the hospitality, the hotels. In fact, tourism is the environmentally most sustainable sector. So if that is a sector that could have progressed even as far as protecting the environment and managing the climate change, that would also have been better. But tourism has been very badly hit. There is, as you mentioned, air travel that has come down. I think it's going to take quite some time for all these sectors to recover to a very significant way. But again, some hope is that, for instance, speaking about India, there have been some economic models that have been drawn up, and they would suggest that we would be getting the peak of this virus somewhere around the beginning of February. So now we have seen for the last 1 week or so, number of cases rising. For instance, even yesterday we had about 27,000 cases, which is a big increase on about 6,000-7,000 cases, which we had just a few weeks ago. So I think it is going to have an impact on all sectors. We know that education has been hit very badly as a result of the pandemic, because in this work from home, education from home, the students have not been able to go to schools or colleges. And that, of course, has impacted adversely on a holistic development of these students. I think women have also been at the receiving end, because it has been found, studies have found that women and girls are the most seriously affected as a result of all the pressures and the tension and the stress that is created. And finally, I would say that mental health is also a very big issue that has emerged, and we will have to, the only way that we can get over this is through collaboration, through multilateral cooperation, through the whole world coming together, and most importantly, removing this inequity as far as vaccination is concerned.
Master Sarjanhat, how do you see India adapting to these new changes which have happened in Kabul?
Very important question. First let me respond to, I think Pakistan was in a state of victorious exaltation, that second superpower that it had been able to defeat, because earlier it was the Soviet Union in the 1980s that it had been able to send back. And now it is, after 20 years, the Americans had also been defeated, and they had also gone out in a very, very chaotic manner, in which by the end of August, the American troops and many of the American civilians left. But I think that victorious feeling and that feeling of ecstasy, as far as Pakistan is concerned, has come down considerably after that, because we see that now even the relations between Taliban and Pakistan, they are fraying. There is instability on the Durand line, on the so-called border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And I think many of the analysts and commentators and scholars, particularly from India, and even on the All India Radio News, I remember having mentioned that this bonhomie between Pakistan and Taliban is going to be short-lived, and Pakistan will also get to feel the heat of this unsettled border, and particularly the presence of some terrorist groups like the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan on the Afghan side. And I think this is what we are seeing. Now, as far as some of the other countries that you mentioned, China, Russia, Iran, they had all, of course, started with the assumption that, the story that was fed to them, that Taliban 2.0 is very different from Taliban 1.0, what ruled the country in 90s, late 1990s up to 2001. So that is why they were going ahead, and they were establishing strong linkages with the Taliban. But when the Taliban came to power, and particularly immediately after the Americans left, then all the fissures and the divisions in the Taliban, they came out in the open. And now what we see is that it is, number one, Taliban is a divided house, and the caretaker government that was put in place in the beginning of September was actually put by the ISI of Pakistan. The position that India had taken of not having any dealings with the Taliban, because we had said that you cannot differentiate, say, one terrorist is a good terrorist and the other is a bad terrorist. So what is India's position? Prime Minister Modi received a call from President Putin on the 24th of August, just within 10 days of Taliban coming to power. And both India and Russia, they decided that both the leaders will establish a private bilateral channel to discuss and deal with the issues as far as Afghanistan is concerned. After that, India has organized one Delhi Regional Security Dialogue on the 10th of November, in which we came out with a unanimous declaration, Delhi Declaration. And then more recently on the 19th and 20th of December, we had the meeting of the India Central Asia Dialogue, the third meeting of that. And there also the same issue was reiterated. But now we see that in Afghanistan, there is a humanitarian catastrophe. And I think that the world has to deal with. And India has made it very clear that whether it is food or it is medicines we have already sent by air. Food, we are keen to provide 50,000 tons of wheat, but Pakistan has been creating obstacles. India has had long-standing relations with the Afghan people, and we would not like them to suffer. So I think going forward, we will have to be creative in terms of engaging with Afghanistan, maybe through the Chabahar port, through Iran, and support the Afghan people so that they don't suffer. But of course, make sure that the Taliban also abides by the commitments it had made of having an inclusive government, respecting minorities, respecting women and girls, and not allowing its territory to be used for terrorist actions.
Mr. Sarjanhar, how do you see the US-China tensions, India's apprehensions as you see China getting more and more aggressive? How is the world in 2022 going to deal with a China which shows no signs of stepping back from its policy of this aggression across the borders, across institutions?
I think the aggression of China is going to continue because China is, in that mood, that hubris, that arrogance, that it doesn't care for what the other countries are thinking. And I think much of what it is doing is also for domestic purposes, basically because during this current year, there is going to be the very important meeting at which decision is going to be taken whether Xi Jinping gets a third term. Because earlier there was a 2-term limit as far as the presidency of China was concerned. So this is a time that Xi Jinping, although just in these few years, he has been able to catapult himself, project himself at the same level as Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. Now he's being projected as even a bigger leader than Deng Xiaoping. What the world really needs to do is to unite and push back.
With these comments, we bring today's discussion to an end. Thank you.
55% Pakistanis have declared performance of Pakistan's Tehreek-e-Insaf government as under par, 13% above par, while 32% found it according to their expectations, according to a fresh survey conducted by Ipsos. The survey results made public on Saturday showed that 46% of dejected people said they had voted for the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf in the 2018 elections. People said the provincial governments and the opposition parties also failed to come up to their expectations during the last 3 years, according to News International.
The External Services Division of All India Radio expanding its transmission in 6 neighborhood languages from the 3rd of January 2022. These languages are Dari, Pashto, Baluchi, Mandarin Chinese, Nepali and Tibetan. The broadcast timings in each of these 6 languages has been doubled from the existing 1 hour to 1.5 hours to 3 hours. Dari service would be broadcast from 10 hours to 11:30 IST in the morning and 1900 to 20:30 IST in the evening on 9950 kHz frequency. Pashto service would be broadcast from 10 to 11:30 IST in the morning and 1800 to 1930 IST in the evening on 11,560 kHz frequency. Baluchi service would be broadcast from 8:30 to 10 IST in the morning and 1800 to 1900 IST in the evening on 9950 kHz frequency. Mandarin Chinese service would be broadcast from 5:15 to 6:45 IST in the morning and 1600 to 1730 IST in the evening on 13,795 kHz frequency. Tibetan service would be broadcast from 6:30 to 8 IST in the morning on 9,875 kHz frequency and from 16:15 to 17:45 IST in the evening on 11,590 kHz frequency. Nepali service would be broadcast from 7:15 to 8:45 IST in the morning on 11,560 kHz frequency and from 14:30 to 1600 IST in the evening on 9,950 kHz frequency. The broadcast services in these 6 languages henceforth will be available every day for 1.5 hours each in the morning and evening. Live streaming on YouTube, News on AIR app, DD Free Dish and shortwave radio frequency is also available. The Bangladesh government has requested the United States to reconsider the sanctions imposed against the officials of its elite law enforcement agency Rapid Action Battalion RAB. Briefing media in Sylhet on Sunday, the Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, said that the U.S. allegations against the RAB are baseless, reports the official news agency BSS. Comparing cases of disappeared people in U.S. and Bangladesh, he said that in the last 10 years, about 600 people have reportedly gone missing in Bangladesh, while more than 1 lakh people are getting disappeared in U.S. every year, and more than 1,000 are being killed by police. However, no one raises questions against the U.S. on the issue, as these incidents are termed to have happened in the line of duty, said Dr. Momen. On the 10th of December, the U.S. imposed sanctions on 6 officials of RAB for engaging in serious human rights abuse relating to their tenure.
A resurgent Indian cricket team takes on South Africa in the second test match at Wanderers in Johannesburg on Monday. Ahead of the match, the team coach Rahul Dravid said the team will put its best foot forward. He lauded skipper Virat Kohli's commitment to the team and training routines in South Africa. Men in blue led by Virat Kohli have already taken a 1-0 lead in the series. If India wins this test, it will be the first ever Indian team to win a test series in South Africa. Johannesburg pitch has been quite favourable for the visitors in the past, as they have never lost at the Wanderers. In fact, India has an excellent track record on this ground, having won 2 test matches in the past, while 3 test matches ended in a draw. Football legend Lionel Messi has tested positive for COVID-19. The Argentine forward and teammates Joan Bernat, Nathan Bitumazla and Sergio Rico were confirmed to have COVID a day before PSG's French Cup tie against 4th-tier side Vennes. The quartet are said to be isolating. Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Guardian says new studies reinforce belief that Omicron is less likely to damage lungs. Wall Street Journal notes that stocks face rockier path in 2022 as rate increases loom. Globe and the Mail observes that Team Canada CEO worried if Beijing Winter Olympics can go ahead as planned. Sputnik News reports that 3 people are missing and nearly 1,000 houses destroyed after Colorado wildfires. Financial Times learns that Chinese authorities pledge to resolve food shortages in lockdown Xi'an. Washington Post reports that your cat could burn your house down. South Korean officials warn after 100 fires.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken tells Taliban to reform their policies if they desire international recognition. Vietnam criticizes China's border control under zero COVID policy as overkill disrupting supply chain, bilateral trade. Fire ravages South Africa's parliament complex, 1 detained. India refutes media reports claiming government missed vaccination targets. Nationwide COVID-19 vaccination for teenagers between 15 and 18 years being launched. Jammu and Kashmir Week gets underway at Expo 2020 Dubai on Monday to pitch in for global investments at India Pavilion. All India Radio to double broadcast time in 6 neighborhood languages of Dari, Pashto, Baluchi, Mandarin Chinese, Nepali and Tibetan from Monday. And in cricket, India to take on South Africa in the second test at the Wanderers Stadium in Johannesburg. And now to end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Sudan.
Jana to, teni kahiye the, teni with that, we end this bulletin of the world news. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time. Namaskar.